Hello again and welcome to another episode of Sunday Storytime, brought to you every Monday morning at 10. Today I'm going to be sharing about one of my most prized possessions. Actually, my most prized possession. If you're a regular on the show, you know that I have a painting behind me of a Doberman. That dog is my dog, Winston. He's a 2.5-year-old Doberman. It seems like they're sort of back, like everybody kind of wants one. They are not a common dog, at least not as common as I think they once were, maybe a few decades ago. I don't want to say 80s or 90s, but somewhere in that time frame, I think people were pretty hot on Dobermans, but you definitely don't see them a lot. I personally did not meet a Doberman until I owned a Doberman. And I'm sure you'll hear from him this episode because he's pretty whiny right now. I think everybody should get a Doberman. I'm noticing this trend of you should not get a Doberman, you can't handle a Doberman, all these things. And I'm not with it, because if you look at what people struggle with when it comes to dog ownership, it's discipline, it's activity, it's mental stimulation. I'll bet that the people that struggle to give their dog those things are struggling to give themselves those things. A dog, to me, is always a mirror of the owner. And I don't know the difference between a low-quality mirror and a high-quality mirror. I'm no mirror expert. But I get the concept of a mirror. And I do understand what it means to have, I don't want to say a low-quality dog, because I love dogs. I love dogs more than people. And I'll take that to the bank. I love dogs. So I don't want to say low quality dogs, but some dogs are just smarter than the others, and that intelligence is what's going to allow you to train a dog, to get the dog to have the manners that you want a dog to have. At least I would think. I don't feel like most people want a dog that's pulling at the end of the leash at every other dog they see on a walk. I don't think people want the dog that barks his head off every time something walks by, or when someone walks in the door, they're immediately ambushed and you can't do anything to calm the dog down, and it's just absurd. I don't really think anybody actually wants that. And when you have a Doberman, let's keep in mind, a dog like a Doberman exists, but there also is no dog like a Doberman, because Dobermans are, to this day, the only breed designed, bred, made, whatever, for the sole use of protecting humans. There are dogs that were bred for protecting livestock, for just being ferocious and attacking and vicious, which I guess you could say is attacking humans. You know, there's war dogs. There's definitely dogs that protect humans in that regard. But Dobermans were bred with the mentality of keep it on the hip like a pistol. Wherever you go, is to protect this person. It's going to be the best mirror that you can ever imagine. And I think more people need to look inwards in that regard. I think people need to face the fact that they're not mentally stimulating themselves enough, or that they're lacking in exercise. They need a little 70-pound missile that's just going to ruin your life unless you give it something to do that's productive, that's fun, that's high energy. You won't survive without giving this dog those things. So I think everybody should have one. Now, obviously, I'm talking about it in a utopia-style world, because there's people that are so unfit for a dog like a Doberman that many dogs would suffer, and the last thing I want is dogs to suffer. But this is just sort of a thought experiment, I guess, for myself. I'm speaking as I'm giving you the lesson to the story, because owning a Doberman is owning a dog. And I don't think I need to paint the picture of what it's like to own a dog. I mean, you get loyalty, unconditional love. Well, I guess it is unconditional. It's also not unconditional, because you still have to feed them. You have to take them to the bathroom and stuff. So there are a few conditions, but I think they'd love you even if they had to do some of those things on their own. I think you could find a way. Very visual, extreme representation of what their bad habits are actually doing. You shouldn't be able to get away with laying in bed day after day, never really getting any sunlight, not experiencing the world, even if it's just going for a hike by yourself. I'm not talking about socializing at clubs and whatnot. I'm talking about seeing the world. People have kids for this kind of reason, and I think that's much more ridiculous than just going, all right, this thing is pretty simple at the end of the day, right? It responds to food. It responds to attention. All I have to do is find a way to give it those things at the moments that are most desirable and make sure it's corrected when it's doing the undesirable things. And over time, you pick up on some things, you'll figure it out. The more consistent you are, the quicker it'll figure it all out. And before you know it, you'll have what I'm going to humbly brag about it a little bit. I'm able to walk through my apartment complex, walk through parks, walk wherever I want, and my dog will stay right next to me. And if I stop, he stops. And if I say a certain word that I'm not going to say right now because he's finally relaxing right over there, and if I say it, he'll come put his head right in my lap, and I'm not quite ready for that because he's pretty intense and I need him to chill out right now. If I say that word, he'll go do his thing, and then if I say another word, he'll be right back to walking. That's what you can have with discipline and consistency, focus, being intentional. Who wouldn't benefit from? Obviously, some people already have these traits and whatnot, but when you get to step up your game because you have this living thing depending on those things, I don't know. The world would be a better place if everybody was forced to raise a dog in a successful, appropriate manner, not just get them because they're cute and cuddly. Give them a dog that demands you be a good leader, that demands you have some discipline in your life, and watch the world start to change its ways a little bit. That's not much of a story, but it sort of is, I guess, in some regards. The moral of the story, whatever you do, just make sure you're intentional, have some discipline, make sure you're consistent, and I promise you will love what you find at the end. So thank you for joining me for another edition of Sunday Storytime. I'll see you on Thursday.